Have you ever fallen in love with someone, and then much later, when the dust settled, realized they weren't at all who you thought they were? You know that moment, that deep, heavy moment, when everything you believed about them starts to feel fake? And you sit there, staring at the ceiling at night, asking yourself, was it all just a lie? Did I make it all up in my head? It's the kind of hurt that you don't even have words for. It's like your heart and your brain stop agreeing with each other. Part of you still wants to hold on to the dream. The other part knows it was never real. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how experienced you are, or even how famous you are. It can happen to anyone. Even Johnny Depp. Yeah, even him. The man who's been one of the biggest stars in the world for decades. The guy who made Jack Sparrow unforgettable. The man with the kind eyes, the shy little smile, and that quiet charm that always felt so real. You'd think someone like him, who's seen it all, who's lived through Hollywood's ups and downs, would know better, right? But no. Because at the end of the day, he's still just human. Just like me. Just like you. When he finally broke his silence and said these 6 little words. I fell in love with a lie, it felt like everyone stopped and took a breath. You could hear the sadness in his voice. It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. It was just pain. Honest, heavy pain. And maybe that's why his confession hit so many people so hard. Because deep down, we've all been there in one way or another. So let's talk about what he really meant. Let's really sit with it for a few minutes. Because his story isn't just about him and Amber. It's about all of us. It all started the way these stories usually do, with a spark. With excitement. For years, Johnny and Amber looked like they were living this glamorous Hollywood dream. They met. They fell in love. They got married. The world watched and applauded. The photos were everywhere, red carpets, award shows, big smiles. And from the outside looking in, it seemed perfect. But, have you ever noticed how sometimes the happiest looking couples are hiding the most sadness behind closed doors? That's what was happening with them. We all saw the headlines. You couldn't escape them. One week, he was suing her. The next week, she was accusing him of something else. Videos leaked. Photos. Audio recordings. Fans were split down the middle, people arguing online, picking sides. But underneath all that noise, Johnny was just a man who thought he'd finally found someone who saw him. Not the star. Not the famous actor. Not the Pirates of the Caribbean icon. But just Johnny. And that's what he thought he had with Amber at first. He believed she loved him. But as the years went on, little cracks started to show. He started noticing things. Patterns. The way she treated him when no one was watching. The way she seemed more in love with the lifestyle, the spotlight, the perks, than with the man himself. Have you ever had that moment, where you're sitting across the table from someone you thought you knew, and suddenly they feel like a stranger? That's what Johnny says started to happen to him. He talked about feeling trapped. About how every day started to feel like he was walking on eggshells. No matter what he did, it wasn't enough. No matter how much he gave, it didn't fill her up. And yet he kept trying. He kept telling himself it was just a rough patch. Because he wanted to believe the fairy tale. Who doesn't? We all want to believe we chose right. That we're loved for who we really are. But eventually, he couldn't keep lying to himself. One day, it hit him. The woman he thought he loved, the person he thought he married, wasn't real. It was just an idea. A fantasy. A version of her he had created in his mind. That's why he said those words. I fell in love with a lie. And you could almost feel how much it hurt him to finally admit it. Because when you say it out loud, it becomes real. And here's the thing nobody really tells you, falling for a lie doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. Because when you love someone, you want so badly to see the good in them. You ignore the little voice in your head. You explain away the bad behavior. You convince yourself it's just stress, or they're just going through something, or you just need to try harder. Johnny did that too. He said he ignored his gut. He didn't want to believe it was true. He wanted to keep seeing her the way he saw her when they first met. And haven't we all done that? How many of us have stayed in something longer than we should have, just because we didn't want to face the truth? It's heartbreaking, but it's also part of being alive. The important part isn't whether or not you fell for a lie. It's what you do once you see it for what it is. And that's where Johnny's story becomes really powerful. Because as much as he's been through, he's still here. Still standing. Still rebuilding. And you can do the same. If you're watching this right now and you're going through something like this, if you feel like you've been fooled, or hurt, or lied to by someone you trusted, let me tell you something, you're not weak. You're not stupid. You're just human. And you can still choose yourself. Now, if you're in a relationship or thinking about getting into one, here are some lessons we can all learn from what happened to Johnny. First, pay attention to patterns, not promises. Anyone can say, "I love you." Anyone can say the right things when they want something from you. But what really matters is how they treat you when nobody's watching. Are they kind? Are they consistent? Or do their actions tell a different story? Second, ask yourself, do they love you, or what you can do for them? If it feels like they light up more when you're spending money, or when you're introducing them to people, but they're cold when it's just the two of you, that's not love. That's using you. Third, don't ignore your gut. Johnny said he ignored his because he didn't want it to be true. But your instincts are there for a reason. That little voice inside you? It's trying to protect you. And last, remember that it's okay to have boundaries. You don't owe anyone your peace of mind. You don't have to keep giving and giving if someone is just taking. You deserve to feel safe and loved in your own home. Even Johnny had to learn that. And so did millions of others who've walked through the same kind of pain. And here's the good news, even if you've fallen for a lie, even if you've been broken, you can still stand back up in your truth. That's what Johnny's doing now. You can see it in the way he's starting over. Rebuilding his career. Writing music again. Smiling more. Standing a little taller. He's free now. And you can feel the relief in him. You can feel the weight that's been lifted now that he's finally said it out loud. And you can have that too. So let me ask you, have you ever fallen in love with a lie? Have you ever given your heart to someone who didn't deserve it? What was the moment when you finally saw the truth? And what would you tell someone who's going through that right now? Take a second and share your story in the comments. You never know, your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. And if this video resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone, even for a few minutes, give it a thumbs up. It really helps more people find this message. And if you're curious about what Johnny's doing now, what his next big projects are, how he's turning the page and writing this brand new chapter of his life, check out my next video. I think you'll find it inspiring. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so you don't miss it. Because even if you've been hurt before, even if you fell for someone who wasn't who you thought they were, you can always come back stronger. You can always choose yourself. And you can always stand back up in your truth. Thanks for spending this time with me. I'm rooting for you. And I'll see you next time.